What was the fastest way you have seen someone ruin their life? Dude I knew was a successful architect. When the office started doing drug tests, he quit smoking weed and started smoking crack. Weed is detectable for several weeks, crack 2 days. Lost his job, sold his house, burned through $80K in a year and ended up with a heroin habit. He dead now. My first question is, why is an architecture firm doing drug tests? My second question is, why in God's name did he think smoking crack was the solution to that problem? Jesus, that's such a sad story. A 16 years old, at the time, murdered my friend's dad for money. He tried to hide his face but didn't hide his tattoos. He was tried as an adult and last I checked, he got something like 40 or 50 years. Sometimes I think about that, and imagine what it's like to spend your youth in prison. Not that I feel bad for him. A 16-year-old murdered my neighbor. He was drunk, breaking into houses to steal stupid things like flag poles. He was friends with our roommate, and came to my house after. Thank goodness we were vacationing out of town. They caught him the next day. I feel guilty for having a roommate in the first place. Stopped taking his bipolar meds because he was feeling good. His wife held out impressively long while he threw away what was essentially his dream job and ruined many other relationships. Now divorced, surviving from manic episode to manic episode. Ex-wife still lets him see his son, but he seems to be making every effort to burn that bridge. As someone who has bipolar, I can relate to his stopping taking meds because he was feeling good when I was younger. However, every time I did that was disastrous and I ended up in a manic episode so bad to the point of needing to be hospitalized. Needless to say, I don't stop taking my meds these days. It can definitely ruin my life. I'll start this by saying this is all info told to me by a mutual friend. An old friend, who was 20 at the time. He was spoiled, but he wasn't an a-hole. He's usually super chill and non-confrontational. He got crazy drunk at a party one night. Everything was fine and fun until his younger sister started telling him to slow down his drinking. She apparently either tried taking his keys or taking a drink out of his hand. Whatever she did, my friend ended up punching her in the face and breaking her nose. As far as me and our other friends knew, this guy had never been violent or the type to lash out. To say this shocked the people who knew him would be an understatement. Someone at the party took her to the emergency room while he tried to get in his car. Thankfully, someone else managed to keep him from driving, and he ended up drunkenly walking down the sidewalk crying. That same night, his parents called the cops on him and had him spend the night in the drunk tank. The next morning, they kicked him out of their house, stopped paying for his car, tuition, and cut off his allowance completely. He was broke within a week and was couch surfing for a few months. He allegedly got drunk and got into a fight with whoever he was staying with at the time and was back on the street. The last I ever heard about him was that he got arrested because his car was getting repossessed, and he thought it was a good idea to smash the windows of the tow truck taking his car. Well-respected doctor in my hometown decided to do the Timbit challenge, seeing how many mini donut holes he could fit in his mouth at home with his buddies. Choked and died. In the 90s, a kid in my school district died at school while doing the infamous Chubby Bunny challenge. I was honestly pretty horrified when it resurfaced and became a YouTube challenge maybe 5 to 10 years ago. I knew someone who choked and died on popcorn at a movie theater. He was a big guy too. Explaining his death to others always included their involuntary laughter, since it seemed ironic. But he was a super decent guy, and he was very much missed by people close to him. When I was an instructor in a drinking driver program, a young man, 17 years old, was referred to the program for guzzling. The case had been handled by the court as a minor in possession of alcohol, not as a DD case. We had 3 one-hour counseling sessions in which to help the young man get a good look at his drinking and its risks instead of the 14 weeks of 2-hour groups he would have attended if his case had been handled as a DD. The young man completed his 3 sessions and made clear that he had learned nothing. A few weeks later, celebrating his 18th birthday, he got into his car and headed down a country road at 70 miles per hour and hit a tree. He was dead at the scene. At least he didn't take any innocence with him. Yeah, I know a person who was killed by a drunk driver and the perp lived, unscratched. It's the biggest injustice that happens all the time. A guy I knew joined the local police force. Within a week, the Florida nightclub shooting happened. He commented on an article applauding the shooter and talking about how he wouldn't have responded. Ended in a huge argument with multiple people online where he spewed hate and threatened some. He lost his job and ended up being charged. Apparently, some of the threats were credible. Sounds like a pretty good outcome, as opposed to him keeping his mouth shut and running around with a gun and badge. Had a teacher male coworker back in the day report a female teacher of harassing him at work, pinching his ass, feeling him up, massaging his shoulders, etc. She in turn lied and said he molested her in the stairwell. We knew it was a lie because she eventually admitted to it. However, the damage was done. He was immediately terminated, no questions asked, and due to the nature of the field had his record noted, he was terminated due to accusations of molesting a co-worker. He was essentially blacklisted from the educational field after just starting out and accruing massive amounts of loan debt to finish his education. He eventually lost everything and committed suicide. It made the local paper. If he reported her first, why wasn't she terminated on the spot? As a woman, I hate this level of double standard. That poor guy. Because she's a woman. It sucks, but is also pretty obvious. In 1997, my Uncle Terry beat 2 cops within an inch of their lives, after they came over to investigate a home invasion. He was arrested, and was sent to prison for 35 years. He died in 2017 of stomach cancer, still in prison. Terry maintained at the trial, and every day after his conviction, that he walked in on those 2 cops raping his 7-year-old daughter. His daughter says the same thing, now that she's old enough to know what happened to her. Ruined his life. Ruined his family's life. They had to move to a different state to get the cops to stop harassing them. Child raping cops were made out to be heroes and celebrated all over the press. Last I heard, one of them was running for sheriff. My first thought was that he could have gone another inch and been the only person talking. I'm to understand it took 3 cops to stop him, and they fucked him up but good. He locked the door, but they broke it down. A couple more seconds and he would have been the only person talking. Knew a guy who took a gun to our high school the day after Columbine. Immediate expulsion. The full spiral took a bit longer, but that decision ruined his life at 16 years old. Do you know why? I can imagine an idiot kid taking a gun because they were scared. No, it was because another kid was being bullied, so he took the gun as a threat to the bully. I was hanging out with a lot of weird insufferable geeks as a teenager. I was one too. We were kind of in a band. We had a lot of fun skipping school and making music. One of my friends was a musical genius, amazing guitar player. His band was actually taking off. They had just released a CD on a pretty decent label. He started doing amphetamines, got kicked out of the band, sold all his guitars, amps and computers, and then set his house on fire and stabbed his grandpa, all in the span of about 2 weeks. Last time I met him randomly, he told me he was out of jail and living in a derelict van with his boyfriend. All in 2 weeks? Jesus. Probably didn't sleep the whole 2 weeks. Stim psychosis ain't no joke. I knew this chick when we were in the Navy. She was high on acid and sitting on the balcony railing 1 story up. When she was laughing, she flipped over and landed funny on her back. She is now paralyzed from the neck down and was given a OTH, other than honorable, discharge. Anything sexual misconduct related at work. He was fired for showing inappropriate pictures to subordinates. More ended up coming out in an investigation. Job, career, wife, kids all gone in an instant. I only saw it happen once, but the dude's entire life was over. Never spoke or heard from him again. Meth. I know a guy who went from a great job, great wife, savings, car, house to having none of the above in 6 months. 18 months later he had lost a lot of teeth and looked 30 years older. Just under 2 years and he was dead. A neighbor in his early 30s. He was a master welder, had bought a new house, had just opened his own shop, and was engaged. He worked hard and we were very impressed and happy for him. Was on his way to the cabin for the weekend when he hit some loose gravel on the highway, dropped his motorcycle and was hit by a passing car. Although he was wearing a helmet, he suffered a very severe brain injury. After recovery, he had lingering brain problems and his personality changed. He forgot how to weld. His fiancée left him and he lost the shop and house. He had to move in with his parents and couldn't work again. He lost everything from that one event. Very sad outcome for this amazing guy. A friend from high school who was raised very Catholic and who had severe mental health issues got baby fever during college and would sleep with any guy she could get her hands on in order to get pregnant. Luckily, the one who did it turned out to be pretty decent, and they're married. Pregnancy destroyed her back and left her with crippling chronic pain, but because she's too Catholic for birth control, she just had her second. She really wants to leave the dad because he honestly sounds like a shit partner AMD shittier parent, but she can't because logistically being a single parent with a toddler and a newborn doesn't work, and even if it did, divorce is too expensive. To give you an idea of the speed at which she did this, we're the same age and I just graduated college and am about to move into my first apartment by myself. Holy shit, she sounds like an absolute nightmare, no offense. She has struggles, but she's actually a great person, dealing with a shit hand. She had severe mental health issues in high school and no access to therapy, as well as an undiagnosed seizure disorder that really messed up her cognition, and this is a direct outcome of that. She now works a job, does all of the parenting, and genuinely loves her children while her husband won't get a job, plays video games all day, and is so irresponsible that she doesn't even feel like she can leave the kids alone with him. What was the fastest way you have seen someone ruin their life? Leave a comment and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this one.